Good afternoon. Convicted murderer Oscar Pistorius is at home. In a statement, the Department of Correctional Services has confirmed his release from prison on parole in Pretoria earlier today. Pistorius was convicted of the murder of Reeva Steenkamp at his Pretoria home in February 2013. He became eligible for parole in March 2023. This after serving half of his sentence of 13 years and 5 months for the murder. Pistorius was granted parole after the Correctional Services Parole Board decided that he was fit for social reintegration. Meanwhile, the anti-gender violence organisation Women for Change says his early release is likely to be widely interpreted as a normalisation of violence against women. SABC News reporter Hasina Gori has been following the story and joins us live for more. A very good afternoon to Hasina. Convicted murderer Oscar Pistorius at home on parole. What else do we know?
So what we understand today is that he has finally, been granted parole. It's not the first time that he had tried to get parole. If I remember correctly, that this is the second time. The first time, given that he had been convicted on first just culpable homicide and only sentenced for 5 years, and that conviction and both his sentencing continued to be appealed, and it was moved from 5 years to now to the 13 years, 5 months that he currently has been facing. That parole only finally granted in November last year. Today, finally, he was allowed out. We don't know what time or when exactly that release took place. Yesterday, when we spoke to the Department of Correctional Services, they had said that he will be treated just like a normal parolee, go through the normal processes. However, this morning we were outside the Hosimampur prison at Atteridgeville where he had been serving his sentence. There was no movement with regards to anyone leaving. Also outside the home of his uncles where he is going to serve his parole sentence, which is till the December of 2029, that's 5 years. Again, no real movement of when he was brought in. Some, media colleagues had been camping from the early hours of the morning, so unsure if he was slipped in, before that. The streets of his uncle's home barricaded. There's private security as well outside. There were some police officers. We tried to engage with the police officers. We tried to speak with the prison security this morning to get some clarity on whether or not, he actually had been released. But that statement is the only statement that we got from the Department of Correctional Services. Says the processes have been done and he's now at home at his uncle's. But, what we also do know is that he was facing murder for Reeva Steenkamp's death. And her family, they are still the victim family. They have given out a statement today. The mum, June Steenkamp, her father passed on, a while ago. And she said in that statement today on behalf of both of them that it's still raw and real for them. It's 1 month short to 11 years from that fateful Valentine's Day, saying that they still feel that hurt, that pain. When that question of was justice served for Reeva, June Steenkamp responds in her statement saying that justice cannot be served when you cannot bring Reeva back, and that while Oscar went through the legal processes, he served his time, they are serving a life sentence of not having Reeva in their life. And we've heard from gender-based violence, different entities and groups, some saying that he did serve, his legal time, but that the focus now should, move to the victims. There are other victims that are not such celebrity cases. Also, June Steenkamp saying that she would now focus on a foundation that will remember the legacy of Reeva Steenkamp as well. So that's what we kind of know at this point.
We know that from what you've told us that the Department of Correctional Services says that he's going to be treated as an ordinary prisoner. There's, different views on that. Just take me through what we understand about what he is and not allowed to do. So every parolee would have different conditions, and even to be eligible for parole, they look at how you would reintegrate into society, rehabilitation. Some of the requests and the conditions that the Steenkamp family had brought in through their lawyers was that he should go for anger management for his anger and that outburst that we saw that led to Reeva Steenkamp's death that night in 14th of February. So that is one of the conditions, that he would attend anger management classes. He'd also go for gender
based violence kind of courses as well, to ensure that he does not perpetuate this same crime once again. But he will not allow to use alcohol, any substances. He won't be able to leave Pretoria without first, speaking to his parole officer. He'd have to check in with his parole officer, within a specific conditions as well. There's a card that he would have all the kind of information that he would have to carry and then bring into his parole officer. He would have to advise his monitoring officer should he move from that home residence, as well as whether he gets a job or any different opportunities. Also, he would not be allowed out his house after a certain time as well. We've not been told the exact time, but these are just some of the conditions that we've been given privy to by both the Department of Correctional Services as well as from the family, the Steenkamp family.
Do we have insight, Hasina, into why that is? The picture that we have of convicted murderer Oscar Pistorius is someone that was quite reckless before he murdered Reeva Steenkamp. We heard about the restaurant where a gunshot was let out in the midst of people. We heard about his driving very fast, this violence that led to the murder of this incredible young woman. So do we have a sense that they are tailored to suit that kind of person?
I think that is what the parole board would have taken into consideration. They'd also look at psychological reports that would have been taken while he was inside of prison. We're not even privy to what kind of behavior may have been perpetuated while behind bars. His behavior at that time, they'll take that into consideration, whether there was good behavior, whether he is rehabilitative. Because one of the issues that was brought up during the parole board interviews when we spoke was that they would also assist the person who was in prison in that rehabilitation and reintroduction into society, because that could also be something that might take into account. So these are the things that would be taken into account, and why you'd see him going for anger management as well as for gender-based violence courses.
Hasina Gori, thank you so much for your insight. She's been following that case, convicted murderer Oscar Pistorius, out on parole from today. Let's stay with that story.